Hello friends, welcome to Rajesh Data Engineering. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the coding interview question using Pyspark and Spark SQL. In today's modern big data world, in big data interviews, most of the time we are asked to solve coding exercises also using programming languages such as Python, SQL, Pyspark. So it's important to have coding knowledge as well. So in this video, I have come up with one problem statement and I'm going to show you how to solve that problem statement using Pyspark and Spark SQL. So I'm going to create a playlist. In that playlist, I'm going to add all the coding related interview questions. So this is going to be one central place where you can come and practice all the coding questions related to PySpark and Spark SQL. And coming to Spark SQL, that is following ANSI standard, which means that is compatible with most of the traditional databases such as MS SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle Database, Postgres. There could be some minor differences here and there, but mostly it is compatible with those programming languages. So this is going to be one place where you can practice PySpark and also SQL coding questions. Right. In today's coding question, I'm going to focus more on window functions such as first, last, lag, sum. I have already posted videos about window functions. I hope you understood what is window function. I have posted video on lead and lag. The video number is 71. In case you don't know what is these window functions, then I would recommend to watch this video. And recently, I have posted another window function related video, first and last. In case you haven't watched, I highly recommend to watch that video also to understand this coding exercise. Let's get into coding exercise. First of all, let us try to understand the problem statement. Let us assume we have input data frame which is having event date and status name, which is having multiple records. For this exercise, I have given simple data set, but in real time, we might have many number of records. Right. So here we are having multiple records, and here we can see event status. There are three records for event status 1. Then after that, three more records for event status last, and finally one more record for event status 1. So my requirement is I have to split the continuous event status. Then I have to find the start date of that particular event and end date of that particular event. So it should be consecutive. That is the requirement. So if you look at this first three records here, the status is 1 and the first event date is 1st of June, and the last or end date for that particular event, that is 3rd of June. And similarly, whenever this particular consecutive status ends, then the next status starts here. The start date is 4th, so the event status, that is last, and the start date is 4th, and the end date is 6th. It is ending on 6th. And once this status is done, then again new status come, that is 1, and the start date is 7th. We don't have any more record, so end date is also same, it's 7th. So this is my requirement. I hope you understood. So we are having input data set which is having multiple event status. So whenever we are having consecutive event status, we have to capture the start date and end date for that particular event. This is the requirement. I hope you are clear on this requirement. Right. Now we have to, whenever you are given this scenario in interview, we should not get panic. First of all, we have to think the approach. We should not think about the end result, and we should not think about programming. What we have to do is we have to start with our analytical thinking, how this particular input data set can be splitted into multiple steps, or how we can split this problem statement into multiple smaller steps, and finally we can achieve this result. That is what we need to think. Right. Now I'm just looking at my input data set, and my requirement is I need to capture the event date, start date, and end date. So for that, what I have to do is I have to split this entire data set into multiple buckets. So here these three records should come into some bucket. Then after that, next three records last, that should come into another bucket, and finally the final record that should go into another bucket. If I'm able to split that into multiple buckets, then easily I can achieve my solution. Simply I can use a window first and last function. Using that I can get the first date and last date for each bucket. Then finally I will be able to achieve this output. Now, how I can create three buckets for this particular data set? How and not only these three buckets, but in real time we might get n number of buckets. So I have to develop a solution that should solve for any data set. That is my requirement. Now, in case I'm going to apply window function directly on top of this one, for example, I'm going to create window based on event status, then the program will split that window into two parts. One is, here we are having two unique values. One is one, second one is last. So it is going to create only two buckets. In the first bucket, it is going to include these three records, and not only these three records, it is going to consider this record also. Why? Because this is also having the status of 1. So I cannot directly apply window function on top of this data. In case I'm going to apply, then it is going to consider this record also in this bucket. Then it will take first date as 1st of June and last date would be 7th of June. So that is not expected output. So I have to find some workaround through which I should be able to split this into three buckets. So for that, uh, actually, you have to resolve some SQL or Pyspark problem statement. There could be n number of approaches, and even in order to split this data into multiple buckets, there could be multiple approaches. Easily, there could be 4, 5, or more than 5 approaches. But in this exercise, I'm going to focus on one approach, and in your real-time interview scenario, whatever the approach comes to your mind, and if that will solve this issue, then you can go with that approach. Right. Now, in order to split this data into multiple windows, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to identify, what is the record, or from which record we are going to get new window or new group. So for example, coming to this fourth record, this is actually starting record of the new bucket. And coming to the seventh record, that is the starting record of the new bucket, third bucket. So I want to identify, which record is creating new bucket. I want to mark it programmatically. Once I have done that, then after that, I can perform running sum. Using that, I can come up. I can split the data into multiple buckets. So first of all, I'm focusing on one step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the record which is creating new bucket. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare. The logic that comes to my mind is I'm going to compare the current status. For example, when the program control comes to fourth record, the current record will be compared with the previous record. In case the status is not same, then I'm going to give some value, that is number 1. In case the previous status and current status both are not same, then put value 1, otherwise 0. So I'm going to develop some logic in this way. So whenever the program comes to the first record, we don't have any previous value, then it's going to be 0, because current status and previous status, that is not same. And coming to the second record, when the program engine comes to this record, it is going to compare whether the current value and the previous value both are same or not. Yes, both are same. If both are same, then it will go to else part, then it will give value 0. And similarly, when the program comes to fourth record, it is going to compare current value, current event status with the previous event status, which is not same this time, because the current status, that is last, previous status, that is 1, it is not same. As a result, it will go to this condition, then it will give the value of 1. And when the control comes to fifth record, it is going to compare the current status with the previous status. Again, both are same, then it will go to else part, it will give 0 value for that particular record. So in this way, I'm going to capture the records which is responsible to create the new bucket. So in this way, I have identified using the value 1. Now this is the one part. Now it's done. But still we cannot create new buckets based on this event change. Why? Because now whenever I'm going to uh, split new buckets, then all these zeros will go to one bucket and all the ones will go to another bucket. Again, this is not going to give expected result. So what I have to do, so in my next approach, what I'm going to do is, this is the current result, what we have achieved. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to calculate running sum. Whenever I'm going to calculate running sum is nothing but adding the current value with the previous values. So when the program comes to first record, this is the current value. It is going to add all the previous values. We don't have any previous value for this record, so it's going to be 0. And coming to second record, it is going to add the current record with all the previous records. So the current value is 0 and the previous record, that is also 0. So whenever we are adding, the result will be 0 that will be added here. So when the program comes to the fourth record, the current value, that is 1, and it is going to add this 1 with all the previous values, and all the previous values are 0. So now the value would be 1. And similarly, coming to the fifth record, it is going to add the current value with all the previous values. We already have 1. So as a result, the sum will be 1. And same will be applicable for sixth record also. So the sum would be 1. And coming to the seventh record, the current value, that is 1. And by adding all the previous values, it is going to be 1 plus 1, 2. So it is coming to 2. Now we can realize. So whenever I'm performing this step, we can easily split the entire data into multiple buckets that we are looking for. So here we can see the event group, the value 0, that is given for the first buckets. So whenever we are having same status, same consecutive status, then it is going to assign the value 0. Then after that, next window for next bucket, it is going to add the value 1. And for the third bucket, it is going to add another new value. So if you are going to follow this approach, then it will create a different bucket for all consecutive status. I hope you understood. Now once we have brought this solution, now it is easy. In my previous video, I have covered window functions first and last. Using that, within each window, now we have to create a window. Within each window, we have to get the first value and we have to get the last value. That is going to be start date of this event and end date of this event. So it's going to be simple. So finally what I'm doing is, this is my input data. I have done some workaround through which I have created event group. Now I'm going to apply the window function. So it is going to create 3 windows for each event group. There are 3 unique values, 0, 1, 2. So it is going to create 3 windows. For each window, I'm going to create a start date and end date using window function first and last. I hope you understood how we have to approach this solution. Now I can give a demo, how we can achieve this solution using Databricks notebook. I will be using both programming languages, Pyspark and Spark SQL. Let's get started with the demo. I have logged into my Databricks environment. My cluster is also up and running. And as a first step, I have to create a sample data frame through which I can solve this exercise. Right. So here I'm creating the sample data. Using the same sample data, I am creating my data frame. Then I am displaying. Let me execute this step. Execution is completed. Here we can see it's the same sample data that I have shown in the PowerPoint. So we are having 2 columns, event date and event status, and there are 7 records. Out of that, first 3 are for the status 1 and the next 3 for last, and the last one is again for 1. Right, now we have to find the start date and end date for each consecutive status. So for that, as I mentioned earlier, I have to compare the current value with the previous value so that I can mark the record which is responsible to create new bucket. So for that, how I can programmatically achieve, how I can compare the current value with the previous value. For that, we can use either lead function or lag function. Anything is fine. But in this exercise, I'm going with lag function. So what I'm doing is, in the current data frame, I'm adding a new column which is called event change. And coming to the logic, I'm going to compare the current value, this event status, that is nothing but current value, that will be compared with lag. Lag means previous value. So lag is also another window function using which we can access the previous value. So here I am comparing the current value with the previous value. If both are not same, then give a value of 1. And in case both are same, then give a value of 0 otherwise. This is how I am applying my first workaround. So I am creating a new column. For that new column, I am using case statement when otherwise functionality. Within that, I am comparing the current status with previous status using lag window function. So for lag window function, we have to use the keyword lag. Then within that, we have to use the column event status. Then using over class, we have to give a window function. Then here I am going to consider the entire data as a single bucket. That's the reason I'm not using partition by column, but only I'm using order by column, order by event date. I hope you understood. Let me execute. So here I have achieved the solution of event change. Here I have marked the records which are responsible to create new bucket. So currently we are having three columns: event date, event status, and event change. And the event change, we are having value 0 except the records which is responsible to create new bucket. Now the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a running sum for the column event change. So it is going to create new buckets. Based on that running sum, we can easily split the data into multiple buckets. So for that, I'm going to use another window function, that is a sum. So sum of event change. So basically some window function will create running sum for any particular column. So here I'm going to create running sum for event change. So I'm applying a sum function for the column event change. So again, this is one of the window function. We have to use window, and I'm considering the entire data set as a single bucket. That's the reason I'm not giving partition by column, just I'm giving order by event date. Right, let me execute this step, and we can see the output. Execution is completed. Now we can see we are having event date, event status, and also we are having event group. After calculating running sum, here clearly we can see the data is splitted into multiple buckets. Using this event group, easily we can create different buckets for each consecutive status. Right, now as I mentioned in my previous video, we can easily apply first and last window function in order to get start date and end date for each window. Once we have computed event group, now it's easily we can calculate the first and last date using the function first and last. First and last, these functions are available in window and also group by. So here we can use anything, but here I'm going with aggregate function. So basically I'm grouping based on event group and event status, and within that I'm using first the function first event date in order to get the first start date. Then I'm creating a column called start date. Similarly, I am identifying the last date using the function last, and I'm giving a column name end date. And finally, I am dropping the unwanted column, for example, event group. So let me execute this step, then we can see the output. Here we can see event status 1, the start date, that is the 1st of June, and end date, that is the 3rd of June. Coming to another status, last, that is start date, that is 4th of June, and end date, that is 6th of June. And coming to the third bucket, status is 1 and the start date, that is 7th. We had only one record, so the end date is also same. So this is how we have achieved the result. I hope you understood. Hope you understood the window functions, lead, lag, sum, first, last, and using that we achieved this solution also. Right. Some interviewer might ask you to solve the same problem statement using Spark SQL or any standard ANSI SQL. So for that, what we can do is, in order to create a solution using Spark SQL, first of all, we have to convert the data frame into view. So in this step, I'm converting the data frame into temp view. Let me execute. Now temp view is created. Here I have given the view name events. Then once we have created the view, then we can write a Spark SQL statement using which we can develop SQL solution. So this is actually Python notebook. Within Python notebook, I want to use SQL solution. So for that, we have to use SQL magic command %SQL. Then within that, I'm going to achieve the solution. Here, I'm using common table expression. This is one of the popular concept in MS SQL Server and other databases also. So basically, we are creating multiple subqueries that is called common table expression. I'm giving a name. It's a kind of temp table. Now it's I'm giving a name CTE1. So above, using Pyspark, we have applied multiple workarounds step by step. So that I'm achieving here. First of all, I'm comparing the current status with previous status. Based on that, I'm marking the record which is responsible to create the new bucket. Then in the second step, I'm creating another common table expression 2. There, what I'm doing is, based on the previous result, I'm applying a running sum so that it can be splitted into multiple buckets. Here I am using sum. Once that is done, then finally I'm applying a first and last function in the main query. Then I'm performing the aggregation based on the event group and event status. Finally, it is going to give the expected output. So let me execute this step. So execution is completed. Here we can see it's the same output that we achieved through Pyspark. So this is how we can achieve the solution using Pyspark or SQL. Hope you understood. Whenever you are getting a problem statement, immediately you should not jump into programming. First, we have to think the steps. We have to break the entire solution into multiple smaller steps. Then after that, we have to translate those steps into programming. I hope you understood. If you like the content of this video, please like and comment in the channel. Please subscribe this channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button to get latest updates and videos on Spark and Databricks. Thank you.